Our next award goes to the Doctoral and Research University Professor of the Year, and our winner is Sheri Sheppard, Professor of Mechanical Engineering at Stanford University. Introducing Professor Sheppard is her former student, Samantha Brunhaver. Samantha, would you please come forward?
It is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Sheri Sheppard. I first met Sheri when I was an incoming master's student in mechanical engineering at Stanford. She was assigned to be my program advisor, and we ended up meeting several times that year just to talk about grad school, to talk about life and careers. And that first time, two things really stood out to me about Sheri. One was that she was incredibly passionate about her work. She does a lot of work on engineering education and the preparation of engineers, and these were questions that I had never really seriously considered or thought about, but her passion and just enthusiasm for the topic was contagious, and I actually became very interested myself, and eventually I became her research student on this topic. And the second thing that I noticed about Sheri is that how she's very caring. One of the very first things that she did for me was put me in touch with the Mechanical Engineering Women's Group at Stanford, which she actually started some number of years before I got there. And so I was very happy when she agreed to be my doctoral advisor, and after that I was lucky to work with her in a number of capacities, not only as her research student, but her teaching assistant and on several other projects with student groups. And I've learned a lot from Sheri about service and research, and especially undergraduate teaching. And so I'm going to focus on one context in which I've taught with Sheri, and really the things that I took away from that experience. So for more than 20 years, Sheri has taught an engineering status course for sophomores. And for many students, this course is really the first introduction to engineering. And I was her TA in 2009. And from the first day of class, I could see why it was so popular. Where other professors might lecture, Sheri promotes hands-on, minds-on learning. And if you can imagine Sheri standing up in front of class with a whole bag of gadgets, pulling them out of the bag, showing students how a screwdriver might turn a screw, or how a can opener might open a can, all kinds of things like that. Passing them around so students can actually have hands-on experience looking at them. And she really thinks about how to engage students. Students to learn forces and moments. They build bridges and analyze bicycles. To learn about fracture, they break chalk and they talk about broken bones. And it's her delivery of course content in terms that students can actually relate to that really makes her unique. And another important thing about Sheri that I learned in watching her teach is that she shows tremendous empathy for her students. In fact, when talking to people about Sheri, the word empathy often comes up. And she's always listening, observing, and thinking of ways to help students to better understand concepts. And I'm sure she'll tell you about her background as an engineer. And first and foremost, I don't think that has ever really gone away. She still engineers her classes, and she's always innovating and thinking about ways to get better at getting better. So from all these experiences, 6 years later, now I'm a new assistant professor myself at Arizona State University. And I really credit Sheri with helping me to realize and achieve this goal. And I often strive to emulate what she does in my own classrooms. When I'm faced with a new challenge, I think about, what would Sheri do? And so for that, I would like to say thank you and congratulations. And please join me in welcoming Sheri Sheppard.
Thank you, Sam, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you to Case and the Carnegie Foundation for making this wonderful celebration of Day on Teaching possible. I'm really grateful to be part of today. So I have a confession to make. sometimes I'm not a great teacher, and sometimes I've actually been a bad teacher. So let me take you back in time. I was in high school and had my first paid teaching position. For me then, music was my world, and particularly the violin. And so each week I would have about a dozen violin students come into the house for their private lessons. And one week when fourth grade Becky came, I really believed she should love music as much as I did and be willing to dedicate long hours a day or at least a few minutes to practicing. I don't remember exactly what happened that day to make Becky cry. But instead of feeling empathy, I was just doggone frustrated that she didn't love this instrument, the violin, as much as I did. Why didn't she? I was a bad teacher. Let's fast forward to when I was a graduate student studying engineering. I was just about to complete my master's degree when my dear mentor, Professor George Karagian, suggested I try my hand at teaching at Lawrence Institute of Technology, a night program for largely working adults getting their bachelor's degree. I had not really thought much about teaching in those intervening years, especially after that ill-fated high school experience. But I admired George as a mentor and educator, and his asking me to do this actually had a lot of weight behind it. I'll say that that was really a game changer. This time, my teaching experience was totally different. I really liked the topic, and I strongly believed that my students taking ownership of the ideas was important to their future careers. While the teaching was probably not up to good, it was definitely better than my high school violin teaching, primarily because I was starting to see that teaching was not about me, but was about my students. I was not a great teacher, but I was improving. Okay, I have a second confession to make. Being an engineer has not always been a natural act for me. I was not one of those kids who repaired her bicycle or built things out of erector sets. I was mostly into my friends and then into music. During elementary school, I was not a dedicated student, earning mostly B's and an occasional C. I did have a natural asset, however, in a loving and talented mother who was also a fifth grade teacher. She spent a whole summer with me between third and fourth grades, teaching me how to read. My mother was an amazing teacher. In high school, academics started getting interesting and fun, particularly physics and mathematics. But going into something science or engineering related in college did not enter into my thinking until well into my senior year when my dad suggested that I give it a try. Let me say a few words about my dad. He was an engineer. All through my growing up, I admired his thinking, how he was able to work with his hands and his head to solve problems. So the idea of majoring in something that helped me think, if not act like my dad, wasn't such a bad idea. In fact, it would allow me to study more math and science. I just have to say along the way, I fell in love with engineering. Engineering clicking for me was an emergent process, but it did really have some bumps in the road. So why do I share these confessional stories with you? Well, one reason is because I believe these experiences are part of what's making me a more empathetic educator and colleague. They have inspired me to design class assignments for my students to let them try engineering on as part of pushing them to see engineering plays a vital professional role in society. These experiences have inspired me to realize that teaching, like engineering, is not a natural act, and that I can play a role in helping new teachers learn to become better teachers. Another reason I shared these confessions is that they illustrate that there have been many people along the way that have helped me to learn to become an engineering educator, from fourth grade Becky to mentors in industry, college, graduate school, and my engineer dad and teacher mom. I'm also grateful to my incredible teacher husband, Dr. Ed Carrier, my high school teacher daughter, Portia Carrier, my always loving sister, as well as many supportive colleagues and friends at Stanford and beyond Stanford. Thank you. And thank you for not giving up on me and for believing in what I might become and what I might be able to do. Thank you.
You don't get off that easy. On behalf of CASE and the Carnegie Foundation, I'm honored to name Sheri Sheppard as the 2014 Doctoral and Research University Professor of the Year. Congratulations.
Thank you.